Yeah.
I grew up in Longwood. I was there
Oh,
till like 18 years old, something like that. So
oh,
I'm in my 40s now. I'm an old dude at this point.
shoot.
Old dude.
We'll all be there one day. We will for sure would be there. Well, hopefully.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'm ready to roll when you guys are. I got to try to cut by 1, and unfortunately, I'm in an office where I don't think I'll get interrupted, but there's a good chance I will, where somebody will just knock on the door and I'll be like, I can't right now. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
No
So,
problem, man. No problem. We appreciate it. All
yeah.
right.
Can you hear okay with this thing? Is that
Yeah,
cool?
perfect.
Works
Sounds
all
good.
right?
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
good.
All right.
So we'll just we wanted to go into a little bit of introduction today about yourself and how you kind of like started the Skydive Ultra race and how you organized it and what
Mhm.
inspired you to start doing something like that.
Okay. That's the question. We're going.
Oh
We're
yeah,
in.
yeah. Right in.
What's Skydive Ultra? I've never heard of it. Tell me about
No,
it.
no. The Skydive Ultra. It's our first introduction to
Our first official race ever.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was our
What
first
distance were you guys running?
We
Remind
did
me.
the 50 miler.
Yeah.
Nice. I
It was
almost
exciting.
dropped an F-bomb right there. I have to remember. I don't know who the audience is, but
No,
we got to
you're
try to
good.
keep it clean.
You're good. Yeah, I know.
So
We're
last year, right? So that was the 2019 edition, obviously, the end of the
Yeah.
no 2020,
That was
right?
2020. Yeah.
oh, it was the
Right.
2020.
The new
You
year.
guys were in January of this year, just before all the S hit the fan,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You caught it just in time.
So I think we're 9 years running as of this year, right? So actually, wait, I'm sorry, that was a different Skydive Ultra. The first one we did was 2013, so that would have been the 7th edition. 2013, we did what they call fat ass event in ultra running, if you've heard of that. So fat ass is a weird term for it, but it's basically a no charge, no frills kind of a race, right? So you don't charge, you just bring your friends. You're like, whatever, I don't care. We'll all meet and we'll run. And so 2013 was the first fat ass event. We called it a drop and give me 50. And it was 50 miles on a skydive. And it was essentially just my friends that I was like, listen, I run a lot and I like to skydive. So we should see if there's some other crazy people that think it's a good idea to go jump out of a plane and then run all day. And as you know, the reality is not a whole lot of people are interested in running ultra marathons. Like that's kind of a really small segment of the population.
Mhm.
Skydiving is also a really small segment of the population. So finding people that want to run 50 or 100 miles or 200 miles, we've had some long distances, and want to skydive, like I'm not doing this to make money, because finding people that want to do that stuff is really hard,
Yeah.
impossible almost.
So
But
you
that was it. That was the genesis. I was a skydiver for a bunch of years before that, and then I picked up ultra running, and then I was like, I don't think anybody does a skydive to the start of an ultra marathon, but that sounds sick. And so
and you guys do the one in Clewiston. Not Clewiston, the one in Texas too, right?
I think we tried that for a couple of years. And like we were talking earlier, I've got a day job, right? I have a job that pays the bills. And unfortunately, it was the reason that I was able to start Skydive Ultra here in Florida, I would say relatively easily. I had a really big base of ultra running friends in Florida at that time. I also started a group called Florida Ultra Runners on Facebook. And so we started that, and that was the one that we started in 2011. Actually, we're coming up on the anniversary. July 11th was the day that we kind of started that.
Oh,
And so
happy
thank you.
anniversary. Yeah.
Thank you. It's exciting. But because of that, I knew kind of all the local ultra runners, and it was really easy. Initially, it was just really grassroots, and all of my friends and people that were really deep. Ultra running's changed a lot over the last 10 years.
It's definitely broadened over like the entire country. I think the more it's become like aware, the more, and that's what we're kind of doing, because there's not a lot of kids that like our age that are doing it. I mean, the average age is, I think, people in their 40s or 30s.
You
I mean,
son of a bitch. You were about to say my age, weren't you?
yeah,
Son of a
I
bitch.
mean, that's more to you guys too, because like, I mean, for kids that have the energy that should be able to do it, I mean, they're too, I'm not gonna say lazy, but I mean, they're too stuck inside to go out and run, or
Immediate gratification.
Yeah.
exactly.
People want that immediate gratification stuff. For me, I read that Dean Karnazes book, and I'm sure you guys have read this at that point.
I have not. Yeah.
I've heard of
You
them.
heard it?
Oh man, and now I'm struggling on the title, but that was the one that changed my life. Dean Karnazes. He was the first guy that really publicized the ultra running, and I saw him. I was trying to look up the name of that book, Ultra Marathon Man. If you haven't read that, you gotta get it. The
We'll put
guy's
it down.
talking about his races, and he's talking about how he finished this 100-mile race through the Sierra Mountain Range, the western states, got back to his car and immediately just puked all over the dashboard. And I'm like, dude ran 100 miles, man. Is that humanly possible?
Yeah.
And if it is, can I do that?
That was our first question.
Right. Yeah. How does somebody do that? And so that was kind of the tipping point for me. It was pretty interesting.
And what was your first race? Was a 50 miler, right? It was what was it? It wasn't. I wrote it down. I saw it.
Research.
Yeah,
You researching.
A little bit.
Well, remind me, because I tried to do a little bit. I took some notes just so that I'd be prepared and be able to have some conversation.
It was the North Face endurance.
No. So there's the thing about Ultra Sign Up, just for what it's worth, is I'm not the only Eric Friedman out there, and somehow some stuff kind of crosses. But I'll tell you the quick history because I think it's kind of interesting. A lot of different things kind of influenced me when I started. So Dean Karnazes put out that book, which everybody my age, just older ultra runners, read that shit like 10 years ago. And so then he comes to Miami and he wants to do a book signing. And at that, I had started to run. And so I ran to South Beach from Fort Lauderdale to go get the book signed. And I got kind of interested in it. And I had been doing a whole bunch of marathons with a buddy of mine. And so I said, I'm going to do one more marathon because marathons are no fun. They're hard work. And I signed up for something called the J Mountain Marathon, which turned out to be a 31-mile marathon, aka that would have been my first ultra, right, up and over a mountain. And I think it took me 11 hours, something stupid like that, and the beer tents were all pulled down by the time I got back, which is horrible. I finished, yeah. And then from there I started to read about ultras. And if you Googled, at least back in this day, if you were Googling ultra marathons, Wickham Park in Florida, Wickham Park marathon would come up. And Wickham Park is out by you guys. It's in I want to say it's in the Titusville kind of area. Okay. And it's basically a little park with a loop that's like 3 miles long, and you just run that thing all day. And the goal is to run 50 miles a day between the park hours. It's open and closes. You have like 12 hours to do it. And you're supposed to run 50 miles a day, 4 days in a row. Whoa. To achieve 200 miles. And the winner of that race gets a rock. That's it. Like, you don't get a belt, you don't get a shirt. This is the ultimate fat ass. A dude named Matt Mahoney, who's like one of the godfathers of ultra running in Florida, if you Google him. So I went and I did that race, and then I was continuing to train, and I was saying that there were a lot of influences. So I lived in Dania Beach at the time, kind of close to you guys, right? That Fort Lauderdale area. And you know that area has bridges all over the place. And so I would do bridge repeats, hopping down the bridge backwards on one leg.
No, what the heck?
Just to build up, like, I'm not saying I'm smart or I knew what I'm doing, just to be clear, but I thought in my head that was a good thing. Yeah. Well, back then we didn't have, God, I sound so old. Back then we didn't have Facebook jamming like we have it now. Yeah. We had something called the Ultra List, and you would sign up, right? That's a server program where you sign up for it, and then your chat room is actually emailing back and forth, and these emails would pour in. Wow. And I put on this ultra list that I was doing these bridge repeats backwards, and a guy named Ben Jones emailed me off the ultra list. I don't know if that name means anything to you. There's a guy named Badwater Ben Jones.
Oh, we've heard of the Badwater.
Yeah. So he's the dude at Badwater who was the medical guy, and at the same time he also I want to say he was the coroner, right? And so there's a lot of really cool stories. But he said to me, he's the godfather of Badwater. He said, "Can I introduce you to a guy named Al Arnold? He's just a friend of mine." And I said, "All right, sure." And he said, "Al wants to talk to you about your workouts." And so this guy named Al Arnold reached out to me, and he's like, "So you're running these bridges backwards?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, well, I had this injury a long time ago. I was in Hawaii and I dove into the beach, and I smashed my head on the ground and broke my neck, and I was
Oh,
paralyzed temporarily. This is on his honeymoon.
oh,
And he said, so to learn how to walk again, proprioception, learning to put down your feet, I was doing a lot of backwards walking.
really?
And he
Huh.
said, yeah, you could look me up. My story's known. And if you Google Al Arnold is the first guy ever to officially do the Badwater to Mount Whitney solo, self-supported run.
Jesus.
And I'm like, holy shit, the godfather of Badwater is, talking to me at the time as a newbie ultra runner to try to figure out what my training was.
Oh, wow.
So the dude tried it like 2 or 3 different times. He got to the top of the mountain, realized he didn't have any of his supplies. Somebody stole his cash at the top of Mount Whitney.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Oh my God.
Comes back down the next day, goes on a honeymoon vacation with his wife, dives into the ocean, and goes paralyzed.
Oh, geez.
After completing this crazy ultra marathon story. Well, he starts to learn how to walk again, right? Just to
Rehabilitation or
change the story. Yeah, rehab and learning to walk through walking backwards, apparently. But that was kind of the influence. It was just really interesting to, as I read this book, all of a sudden this guy Dean Karnazes shows up in town. Then this guy Matt Mahoney's got a race right around the corner from me that I show up at.
Mhm.
Then Ben Jones and Al Arnold, and then it kind of continued. But that was my intro into ultra running and all these people that kind of influenced it.
Now, is that backwards running thing or walking thing? Is that like common? Is that a common thing for ultra runners to be doing?
I don't think so.
Okay, I was about to say.
I don't think so. I
Might
don't
be
think
a
so
sign.
at all. I don't know why I was doing it. I'm not sure what was in my head at the time. But then after this Al Arnold guy, we also had a guy stay at our house. My wife and I had a guy named Jesper Olsen stay at our house just a couple of months after that. Jesper Olsen is known as the world runner. This dude ran around the world vertically, north-south, and then ran around the world again, east-west.
Oh my
What?
God.
He had some dude from Denmark come with him and drive a car and basically crewed him on every flat land that he could. The guy ran through, if you look him up, the guy ran through literally every part of the world, and including parts of the world that they tell people not to travel to and not to go to, and stayed at our house for like 5 days. The guy was, kind of he landed in the Keys and was going north on this particular trip. It's crazy.
How much time did that take him?
A few years each time.
Jeez.
A few years commitment. But it was funny. He stayed with us. We ended up doing one of the local races. He was running 50 miles a day to get around the world, and sidetracked to go run a Everglades Ultra, Bob Becker's race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down south. Did you run that one?
No, we actually interviewed another kid that from UCF who had just ran it, and he
Okay.
said that was he met Bob Becker, and it was
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, it was
Bob's a beast,
Yeah.
dude. Bob is an animal, right? Bob's crazy, insane. He's like in his mid-70s, little kind of power plug guy, and I think he finished the Marathon des Sables, which is a 7-day race across the Sahara Desert, on a broken femur. Like he had a hairline crack in his femur for 2 days and just walked it off, man.
Hearing all this stuff, it seems like a lot of ultra runners they develop this resiliency that like most people. I mean, I don't know if it's born with or something that you can grow, but it seems like they have this resiliency that like can drive them through pretty much anything.
Yeah, ultra running was for me kind of eye-opening, right? Can you do it? And if you guys have run ultras at this point, so it's just time, right? It's not like I'm not smarter than the next guy. I'm not faster. I'm not stronger. You just literally run every day, Forrest Gump style, and then one day you can run further. You're like, shit, I couldn't run a mile when I started, and now I can run 50 miles.
Yeah,
It's amazing. It's unfortunate for the people that I manage on my sales team, because at this point I'm like, just put in the work and it'll happen.
Do people in your sales team they come up to you and try to join your races and stuff like that, or try to get into running? Or
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about regular work. All of a sudden I'm like, look, if you work harder, shit will fall into place, right? Like there's no silver spoon, there's no magic pill. It is literally like, get up at 3 a.m, put in the work, and whatever you're working towards will naturally fall in your lap because you're just working towards it.
and you could see a lot of that kind of parallels to life that like ultra running gives you. I mean, essentially
Exactly.
the hard work that your work ethic,
Exactly.
whatever you're putting in is what you're going to get out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
So after that 31-mile race, what was your next like big step from there? Like the next like big race you did?
I think I showed up at Wickham Park, which is that one where you do 50
Yeah.
miles a day there's no belt, there's no medal, there's no buckle, there's no entry fee. If you look up the website, the guy says, Matt Mahoney says, no wimps, weenies, or whiners allowed. He runs the course ahead of you, and he uses a bag of flour that he uses as direction on the ground.
Those are your markers.
Those are the markers. And, within a loop or two, they're gone, right? So, people get lost. I called my wife from that race, and I'm like, yeah, things are going well. She goes, that's good. Are you having fun? I said, yeah, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. It's cool. I gotta go. I'm gonna throw up. I'll see you later, honey. And that was that conversation. Then I went from there to Andy Matthews puts on a race named Croom Zoom and Croom Fools Run, which was a 50-mile race out in Tampa, which has been going on forever. And they just got he's a great RD, but I did that. That was my first official 50-miler.
Nice.
And then the Keys 50-miler, Keys 100-miler a couple of times, and then a race called Ancient Oaks, which is also a Florida race.
And that's in Titusville?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're thinking about progressing to like our next race, and that's why we're trying to talk to a lot of different ultra runners, trying to get our tips and see what to do and what not to do, learn from other people's mistakes, and so we were looking at the Keys, and I mean, and a lot of people have told us about that. Is there anything we should prepare for in general, just for the Keys 100?
Heat.
Okay.
Humidity. Yeah.
What's the terrain?
So,
mostly road, right?
Flat and hot. Gotta help you if the breeze is if you don't have a tailwind.
Okay.
Keys is awesome. Keys was my last 50-mile experience before I made the jump to 100-milers. And I remember I was out of the Keys doing the 50-miler, enjoyed it immensely. It's beautiful. It's fun. I don't mind running on roads. I'm not one of those trail purists. But I remember I finished that somewhere around 13 hours, just barely under cutoff, drank a beer, went back to the Airbnb or wherever we were staying at, almost died, right? Like the 50-miler was just unbearably painful, and it was like whimpering in my wife's lap, crying. The next morning I got up early, like 5:30 in the morning, went to go get some Burger King or McDonald's, some very healthy breakfast.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna eat it. By the way, we talk about nutrition. I'm not one of those guys that, I've raced on just about every type of nutrition you can, from beer to beef jerky to nothing to smoothies to vegetables to.
You've done
I've tried it all.
I've
done it all.
Wow.
Tried it all. But I went to this Burger King thing, and I'm driving down the street, and we had gone from Key Largo down to Key West, right? And in Key West, at 5:30 in the morning, I see these zombies with race bibs walking down the street, tilted over to the side. If you've ever seen the 100-mile walk, people lose the ability to hold themselves straight up sometimes, and they've got this crazy lean.
Wow.
And I remember 5:30, I had now slept. I had died overnight. I was in so much pain, and then slept for 8 hours. And I'm like, these mothers are still going. Like they're still going. And I was like, how? And I had read the books, but I was so blown away seeing these guys, just crawling and scraping through the last few miles of their finish as I was going for my double breakfast burger, whatever. And I was like, holy shit, I have to do that.
And we met in your race. We met a lot of ultra runners or 100-mile runners on the trail, and we're leaving at 11 o'clock at night, and me and him look at each other, and we're dead tired.
We remember one guy saying, "I just got to make it through the night," and we're like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
like, are you kidding?
Yeah. So I have some tips on that, but it would have blown your mind, So in what was it? We added the 150 miles. So the Skydive Ultra thing started 2013. 2014 was the first legit year.
Okay.
2016, we added a 150-mile division for, real crazy people. And then in 2017, we added a 200-mile division. It's nonstop, right? So nonstop, and you guys ran the course. The course sucks. I don't make any bones about it. It's not beautiful and it's not soft.
The sugar
You know.
sand is that was probably the most difficult part.
There's some
correct?
sugar sand,
Mhm.
and then the grass is bunchy in that part along the highway, right? So it's like
Yeah.
Blister City. But the 200 miler would start on Thursday afternoon at 3.
Wow.
And your race, right, the 50 mile or even the 100 mile starts on Saturday morning.
Oh wow.
So people would show up Thursday at 3 o'clock and start running. And then people, as you know, show up on Friday night and start camping. And they show up and people have already been running for 24 hours. They're already doing the zombie walk. And then you guys and the rest of everyone from the 10K all the way up to the 100 mile, they show up Saturday morning.
Mhm.
And now these guys have been running a day and a half. And they're just starting to run with the rest of the people at like 120 miles into their race.
Oh my God.
So that shit's insane. But that's one of the coolest things I think about the race is we have all those different distances, you know, commingling together.
And it's inspiring, like especially to people that haven't run those distances yet. It's like it kind of goes, okay, what more can I do? You know, what's the next one? What's the next one? Or you know, or even in the training. I mean, it kind of like, you know, you're going out late at night. When we were training for your race, it was long nights of, you know, 15-mile days or you know, 20-mile days, and we just, you know, this is it. We got to get ready for that date, and it's just
retarded.
yeah,
It's crazy. It's so retarded.
You enjoy it in some weird way. It's like I don't understand, but
well, ultra runners are also special people too, right? I mean, ultra runners are really cool, really nice, really generally smart folks that are, you know, they understand pain and suffering, and they also, you know, they don't really put other folks down very often. The class of people is very supportive and motivational. It's amazing. I mean, it's a really good group of people.
I think everybody's supportive because they were there once too. At one point you couldn't run 10 miles, or I couldn't run 10. So it was like it's that progression. Everybody kind of lifts.
And during the race, you can't run 10 miles. You know, we go through such low points that we depend on people.
Yeah.
You know, when you're running 100 miles or 50 miles and you have somebody to crew you, I don't know if you guys, I don't remember, did you run it without crew or with crew?
We had our parents there, and they kind of met us off at that like halfway.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was fun though. I mean, like we had enough supplies on us, and obviously you guys provided enough supplies, and we felt.
Is there enough bacon?
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Plenty of bacon. Yeah. How did that tradition start? Where you started 50 pounds of bacon?
I enjoy bacon.
Oh, okay.
Really. The answer's not too terribly complicated. I like bacon, and I know a lot of other people like bacon, and I figure that was a good draw. So,
definitely.
Bacon. You get bacon. You get bacon. Everybody gets bacon. So the 200 miler, I think the fastest guy finished in 54 hours.
Oh,
Just let that roll around your head. The guy was curled up, sleeping on the floor in a few different places. Phil Eberts just burned through the course. And now is he an elite runner? Like, I mean, I'm assuming 200 miles. He was that night.
Oh, that night for sure. Yeah. What's the most? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, what's the most like inspiring person you've had in your race so far that like, really stuck out to you?
Anybody that runs those kind of distances is crazy inspiring, right? 200 miles for me was not something I was ever going to be able to do, you know. So seeing that's pretty amazing. But I had some friends that ran with me that weren't exactly athletic folks, folks that were on a journey trying to lose some weight, and I had some friends that were pretty big that ran through 50 miles. Took them longer than the allotted time, but in my personal ultra running, any crew that I've ever had were non-runners. For the most part. I really enjoyed, like you said, bridging the gap between quote normal people and ultra runners. You know, people that want to, you know, that you can give them that vision that there's so much more out there that they're capable of.
Even to non-ultra runners, I mean, even to ultra runners compared to like the guy who did 200 miles or the guy who does an 100-mile race, it's almost out of reach for us.
Yeah, I was positive I'd never run a 100-miler when I was running 50. I was like, I don't need to put in that kind of time and effort. But the best thing that worked for me on 100-milers, you were talking about the keys and how to get there. I had a great friend of mine, just saw him yesterday for some skydiving, as a matter of fact, a guy named Smitty Baptiste, who we would run all the time. He was my training buddy, right? Never missed a session, always there, always on time. We would meet every other Thursday. So twice a month, every other Thursday, we'd meet up at like 10 o'clock at night after a full day at work. And we would go running the streets, and we would run all night long, twice a month, every Thursday on a work night, convenience store to convenience store. We were real jabronis at the time. So we would run to a convenience store, drink a beer, eat a bag of Chex or some beef jerky or something, go run another 5-10 miles. And we would do that until 5 in the morning. I would come home, and then we would go to work the next day, fueled on beer, Chex Mix, and like 40 miles overnight.
That's a long day.
It was a long day. It was a long day, but it would simulate being up all night long. You got really used to being up all night long. And if you're running with somebody that you enjoy, overnight running, like when it started to get dark on these 100-milers, I was like, all right, we're going to have some fun, right? It's a time to enjoy instead of being scary and slow and whatever.
See, I prefer night runs, and I know he prefers like runs in the morning. Is there like, you obviously, I think you have a preference, or?
Whenever you can get your mileage in.
Yeah.
Mine is always the morning, right? At the end of the day, I'm pretty much toast. I'm done. So I found myself getting up at, I say morning, I found myself getting up at 2 in the morning so that we could knock out the 30-mile runs before work when you have to get those. But that was a long time ago. I haven't done a whole lot of ultra running in quite a while.
You're just setting up the circus now.
Exactly. That's it.
How was your first 100-miler, like after passing that 50-mile point? Well, like what was going through your head?
So that race, I did have one particular ultra runner that was on my crew, and she was taking no shit. She's a hard ass. Rebecca, she's gonna kill me. I forgot. Rebecca Daniels Hansen was my crew for my first Keys run, and I was such a little whiny baby. It was terrible. I did 350 no problem, and then I wanted to have a Coca-Cola, and I had the can of Coca-Cola in my hands ready to drink, and Rebecca came by and literally bitch slapped the can completely out of my hand. She's like, you don't get that until later, until the sun comes down.
It's a reward.
It's hard. It's real hard. It's real hard until, from 50 to 80, right? Like you get to that 50 mark and you're like, okay, I accomplished something. I'm halfway there. And then the next point for me that mattered was 80. And then 85 to 95 was a mess. It was brutal. The thing about 100-milers is it doesn't matter how close you are to 100. If you're at mile 90 and the rails come off, you're done.
Really?
You're done. If your nutrition's bad, if in my case, the reason 85 to 95 was so bad is I thought I was only 10 miles out. Like I stopped eating. I wasn't able to get calories in. The sun starts coming up in Key West, and it's hot, man. It's May. It's like, it's 85, 90 degrees at 6 in the morning, and the sun just starts beating on you again. And so you don't want to eat food, you can't get stuff down, and it got 85, 90 miles underneath your belt, man. Stuff starts to break down.
I hear you. Well, I hope we get there one day, and I'm sure we're going to give it a shot, but yeah, that's
for sure.
So were you like consuming calories like every like hour, or just like when you felt hungry, or?
So I told you I've done all of it, right? So one of the Ancient Oaks runs that we did, we knocked out the first marathon with beer only, just for fun. We would do a loop, a 3-mile loop, and then we would come back. This is my buddy Smitty and I, and the race director Mike Melton had to come over because we were in a public park, right? That he's got to get permits for. And every loop we would come back, crack a bottle of beer, drink the beer while we were sitting there, and then we put the beer on top of the car. And so after 10 loops or whatever it was, there was just beer scattered on all these cars. And I've done that. I've done the Ketosis Diet, where I was primarily in ketosis and sucking down coconut oil and avocado and meat during the run.
Was it something primarily you do just during the race, or did you do it like during your training period?
I kept keto for a while. I was full on ketosis for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Sweet, man.
that was probably the most amazing point of, that's when I had my fastest 100-miler.
Oh, wow.
And it was, my wife thought I was manic at the time. I'm a guy that needs 7 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
and I'm usually pretty positive. But when I went on full-on ketosis, I was sleeping 3 hours a night, feeling amazingly rested, and had more energy and more positive vibes going on than I've ever had in my life.
Wow. Yeah.
But it was hard to maintain. I'm no longer ketosis. I'm more Big Mac now.
The carbs, man. I love them. I love them.
I love it. It's too good. Too good.
He did keto for a while.
Yeah.
Pretty good. And then we did carnivore for like a month. And I would say that was the best, like positive vibes wise. Like
Is that right?
My emotions were steady. I was never like, I would never have a spike during the day. It was pretty good. I was
Did
feeling,
you do keto strips when you were carnivore?
No.
Just for any of that?
I did when I was doing keto, but I should have tried it when I was doing carnivore. That would have been
because that's 100% meat, right?
Correct. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you'd be in full-blown ketosis there too.
Yeah.
We were feeling, I lost like 15 pounds during that month. And I mean, I really don't have a whole lot of weight to lose anyway, but it was wild. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. I recommend
that picture. So I'm walking around right now at like 225 pounds, 6'2", 225. There's a picture that I have of me running that Keys race where I was 185 pounds that year.
Whoa.
So I was 40 pounds down that particular year. Was in full-blown ketosis. I was super, super lean. And I pretty much ran negative 25-mile splits.
Whoa.
On that race. I just kept getting faster and faster and faster.
That's crazy.
All the way through. It was a wild experience. It was nuts. It was the best race I had. And for me, like I'm not top finisher, right? For me, that race was 23 and change. I had a goal of sub 24.
That was the Keys.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Man.
But it felt amazing, on that diet. One piece of advice, I'm known for this. One piece of advice: carry a condom with you.
Oh yeah.
Because the boy's knocking on the front door for 100 miles. I put on. I believe I'm the only guy in history to have done this. I don't know, but at the time I had a bunch of friends knew. The story was I finished my race and I'm sitting down with Bradford Lombardi, a guy back then named John Pyle. We would bring up the name, but and a few other people. And I'm sitting down after the race. We're all drinking a beer. It's like, 9 a.m. or something like that. And I'm like, oh, I forgot. And I reach into my shorts and I pull out a condom and I reach over and I throw it out and I look. I'm brain dead at this point. I realize, maybe these other people don't understand. And they look at me like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, well, there was chafing involved in the middle of the night. And so,
that's perfect. Oh my God.
So I rolled one on. Well, meanwhile, this other guy that I was sitting with, this John guy, was like, oh yeah, I do that too. And he pulled out a tube sock, like from your gym, like, one of them old school cotton tube socks. And I was like, dude, that's what the hell? So, but that saved my life, man, because chafing is real.
Yeah.
But I've never chafed in that area until that night. And luckily, there was a bachelor dude on my crew, one of my buddies, and he's like, "Yeah, I got one. I can hook you up." Like,
cool. He came prepared. Huh?
Yeah. So,
that's a good tip.
Yeah.
Put that in the little basket with all your gels and your Advil and Motrin and all that stuff.
After the skydive, he messed up his knee maybe 14 miles in. He was speaking of Advil. He took, what'd you take that night?
I took like 8 Motrin.
Oh,
and then you got to be careful with that stuff, right? Because the kidney failure and renal disease and all that stuff is really real.
I threw up blood after the race.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Made it through.
That's my biggest fear, man. As a race director, we've been really lucky. We only had one like slight skydiving issue. Guy broke his tibia actually on the very first year that I did it. Otherwise, no other issues. But we've sent a few people, unfortunately, to the local hospital from running. We had somebody in the 100-miler that finished the 100-miler, was completely whacked out on his sodium levels, and fell over while I was talking to him right in front of me, drinking a beer, and then all of a sudden just kind of spaced and fell over and was severely depleted of sodium. right?
Wow.
Which is super bad, kind of went into seizure stuff. Another guy had a similar thing, and both of those guys had ambulance rides. And for me, that's both of those guys were my friends.
Mhm.
Scariest thing ever, right? I mean, just on a lot of levels, from a liability standpoint, and seeing your friends go down.
How close is the nearest hospital?
And
Is it medical?
15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
15
That's
minutes
not
away.
too bad. Yeah.
Not too bad, but and then we had another guy go based on the kidney issues, right? Just too much protein getting leaked out of his muscles, and what is it, rhabdo?
I was gonna say
Rhabdo, yeah.
rhabdomyolysis. Yeah.
Yeah, he had that, and he was in the hospital for a few days.
Yeah.
So
Have you experienced any serious injuries before during one of these runs, or not?
none of that. None of that. I've torn my groin muscle twice and my hamstring twice. The
Running with?
hamstring was racing somebody younger than me, right? Doing speed kills you, man. We were literally, it was like 100-yard dash. And the other three, the hamstring and then the two groin pulls, were from pulling tires. So
Oh,
be
wow.
careful if you decide to get into the whole tire pulling thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Putting the extra weight on. I know they have those. What are those? They have those like kind of wheelbarrow things where you put the weights on it and you can drive those.
The
But
sled or
the
whattever.
sleds,
Yeah.
yeah. I've seen a couple of guys do those and stuff. Just
In our world, man, you love pulling a tire, right? Like you see these numbnuts running down the street with a rope tied to their waist and a tire 15 feet behind them. So that's what we do. That's the ultra runner crew. Go find a tire on the side of the road and hook it up.
Sweet, man. Well, yeah. Let me see anything else I want to cover.
Have you guys done any of the have you crewed any of the bigger races, or tried to get involved and go to some of those?
The skydive was literally, I mean, before that, we did our own like unofficial, even see if we did our own like race up in Tallahassee. Me and him just tried to run 32 miles. And we had like my dad and his dad, like kind of our crew, and meet us up at the halfway point, give us some food. And then when we got back,
Yeah,
that was our unofficial one. And then yours was our first one.
Yeah.
right on.
Yeah. So
Nice.
we definitely want to get involved in this community a little bit more and kind of meet some new people and have fun with it.
Well, get involved, right? I mean, there's big races that you can go crew at, and you can. I mean, that's one of the cool things is just showing up at these races, and people need help, and they want to get involved, and you're on social media, and you go and crew whoever, right? And then pick their brain. It's a small community. It's really nice.
Yeah, but everybody in it is just super welcoming, super cool, super inviting. Will help you out any way possible. I mean, besides giving their supplies to you.
Even then, man, people give up stuff all the time, right? Like constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was fun. I did. I was lucky to crew Badwater a couple of times. Crewed a buddy doing Western States, so some of the big races got that experience.
What would you say one of the cooler races that you've ever been to would be?
For me, the Keys was my favorite. Absolutely. It's probably. I like the idea of a point to point. I like the idea of the mile markers every single mile. I love the water, being a Florida guy. So for me, that was my favorite. But obviously Badwater is kind of like the creme de la creme, and going out there and meeting those people, these icons, the Marshall Ulrich and Ben Jones and Lisa Batchin and all these people that you hear about, that
the elite of the elite.
That guy Marshall did like a quad, or right, like he ran it back to back to back to back.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah,
you showed me. You showed Marshall Ulrich. Yeah, wow.
It's crazy what people do. So like, again, there's a marathon, and then you introduce somebody to an ultra marathon, and they do a 50-miler, and then you find out there's a 100-miler, and then you show up to a race and they're like, oh well, we offer a 200-miler. And then you hear about somebody running this Badwater race.
And Badwater you need to be invited to, right?
It's a selection process. Yeah, they invite, I think, 99 or 100 people, and basically you have to apply for it. Wow. The guy that I crewed, I was there 3 times. I crewed a guy named Grant Mon, who had just started to kind of get into ultra running a little bit, I think, at the time. And I didn't know the guy very well. And he said, yeah, I really just want to finish. He was kind of secretive about his stuff. And he started running, and he was on this pace. I had done this whole pace chart, and I'm like, dude, you're on a pace to finish this thing in like below 20 hours, man. You're way ahead of your schedule. And he just kept brushing me off, brushing me off.
Whatever.
Ran the thing, came in second
Oh my
that
God.
year,
Oh.
right? And then the next morning, we're all having breakfast. He's picking at his gnarly toes, these disgusting toes. We're eating eggs. And he goes, I think I'm going to run back.
That's
I'm like,
crazy.
what? And he goes, yeah, I think I'm going to turn this into a double. And I'm going to run back to the start line.
Dude.
I don't know if he was planning it or if he just literally thought it. The dude ran back to the start line.
Oh my
That is
gosh.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That yeah. That I'm
That's
sorry.
insane.
Count me out. Holy
I
crap.
get it. For me, it was meditation, you know, the long running. That's what I got out of it when I would just go run.
I always say, well, I always tell him that running is just kind of, once you get in a groove, it's like moving meditation. It's a moving meditation. You just, all you got is your head, you know?
Yeah. I'm super hyperactive, grew up ADD, you know, kind of on that spectrum. And I read a book it made a lot of sense. I read a book by a guy named Eckhart Tolle, who's like one of those spiritual, you know, books all about meditation. And he was explaining that a lot of people use physical endurance as a crutch. They don't realize it, but they always say, I feel so much calmer. I'm so much more relaxed. You know, it balances me. And this guy, Eckhart Tolle, is like, endurance is to, you know, your mental state as meditation is. The difference is if you think about yourself as being a horse, endurance, you're tiring the horse out. You're not training it to stand still and relax, right? To still your mind. So, but that was my same thing. I beat myself to death, and then I'm like, I feel so good. I could just relax.
I'm at peace. I'm at peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the I think of it that way too. Like another like example would be like an overflowing battery. And I would say, I mean, I'm probably on the ADHD spectrum or ADD spectrum. And after a long run, I just feel like I can kind of focus on something a little more. Whenever I'm at school, I would do my homework and I would sit down after a long run, be able to focus on something a little bit more, you know. Definitely helps out.
That's a good analogy, right? Like your stuff is overflowing and it just needs a release right there.
Yeah.
Another tip is dark beer.
Dark beer?
Dark beer after a long run, man. Nothing better. Load those carbs back up.
Oh yeah. You ended up giving us I think it was a Michelob afterwards, and that was just what I needed. Just what I needed.
I gave you guys the swill and kept the good beer for myself then.
I think you did offer us a whiskey, but I wasn't in the mood for some hard liquor. I need
Probably smart, very wise. I've done plenty of beer while running, but very little. I'm not gonna say never, but very little of the hard liquor. You guys ever heard of hash running?
No.
Not the smoking hash before anybody goes there, but the hash house harriers and hash runs.
No, I've never heard of that. What is that?
That is a what do they call themselves? A drinking club with a running problem. It's amazing. It's really fun. So you get together. They constantly meet up. It's kind of an undercover kind of, you know, fight club kind of, you know, nobody speaks about it unless you know about it kind of thing. But you meet up most frequently at a bar, have a couple of drinks to start, sing a few of their insider songs. Everybody gets their own name, like a trail name. Like, you know, you'd be Poke It in the Back, and you'd be, you know, two mics or whatever. And so everybody gets a name. And then the game is one person is known as the rabbit, and they carry a tennis ball and a bag of flour. And everybody else are supposed to chase down the rabbit, and they carry whistles and flashlights. And so the rabbit has already mapped out a course where he's going to run this particular course, and you try to catch him before he gets to the end of his course, and he gets whatever head start you determine.
Oh, everybody has to decide on one.
Yeah, and so you do this in the city, right? You don't do this out on a course, but this guy just takes off, and every 100 yards or wherever he's at, he dips the ball in the flour and throws it at the ground. And you chase him looking for the drops on the ground.
That sounds kind of fun, actually.
When you get on trail, right, there might be 15 people, and everybody starts spreading out. You go this way down the street and behind this building and down this alley and down this residential neighborhood. And then you start blowing your whistle when you're on trail, and you yell on or on trail. And then you have beer checks and liquor checks. So you'll get to a place and there'll be a B and a check mark on the ground, and somewhere in that vicinity, the rabbit has set up a cooler with beers for everybody, and everybody's got a
That's
slam of
hilarious.
beer. And then you'll run another mile and there'll be an L and a check, and there's a bottle of tequila sitting next to the tree, and everybody has to do a shot, and then you end up back at some bar that they determined was their end spot.
Oh, we got you
That's a
back.
good spot. I dig that.
Got you. We lost you.
Yes. Back. I know. I was here. I promise. I didn't go anywhere.
No, but that sounds
That's
really
right.
fun. Yeah, no, I would definitely like to try that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's next? Where are you going next? What's the next plan for the ultra marathon?
We're thinking Keys. We're thinking Keys 100 for next year. We've been with COVID. We've been we've definitely been running still, but we haven't been like nothing with our eyes set on anything. And I think once you finalize that race, you become more motivated to like run more miles. Let's say, I mean, honestly, like I think the past 2 months, the most I've ever run is probably maybe 15, 20 miles. So, I mean, but I'll do my 6 milers every now and then, or I'll do a 2 or 3 if I have time, or I'll do, I'll just try to progressively get more and more, in.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think Keys might be
the next big one, but we'll probably do some like in between from like now until like next year.
Yeah. I'd like to do like another 32 or something like that just to get my legs in,
You guys should drive over to Wickham Park this weekend. This is the weekend that this guy does this race. This Matt Mahoney guy puts up. It's his birthday weekend. Him and Jim Schrader, the Animal Jim, are 2 guys in there. I'm not going to call out their age, but he's doing like Matt's kind of converted to CrossFit, so he's going to be out there, and there's a bunch of people running loops, and I think it's this Saturday. You should go check that out. It's super relaxed, super casual. You can get in a lot of miles with guys that are going to do a lot of miles.
Sweet,
fun.
Yeah. We took a break, sort of. We were the most recent endurance challenge I would say we did is he wanted to see if we could just for funsies, beat the world record for burpees in 12 hours. We sat in his living room watching just whatever movie he was on and did burpees for 12 hours. And that was.
What'd you get? How many did you get?
4,100 or 116. I think it was.
Horrible. That sounds horrible.
And then he got
terrible.
36, 37,
like 3,700.
Yeah.
What was the body pain like the next day on that one?
Like your legs after a 50 miler, but just your upper body, like your arms and shoulders.
I couldn't lift my arm higher than like maybe a 45-degree angle from my shoulder. It was ridiculous.
Did you guys read the David Goggins book?
He did.
I listened to the audiobook.
Right. So about his pull-up stuff that he did.
That's where we kind of got the idea. We were like, all right, let's see if we can broaden our endurance challenge a little bit. But running's definitely my my favorite so far.
Well, to get to the 100, you're gonna have to start cracking out some more mileage. You gotta have long runs under your belt, and you gotta have long runs back to back under your belt.
That's what's going to keep that endurance.
Saturday 40 miler, Sunday 20 to 30 miler. You do that a couple of times, and then you really you beat the hell out of your body to get ready for it.
Yeah, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
I think the best thing that we found out, especially to train for the 50, was those long back-to-back runs.
The back-to-back.
Like if we had like a 15 or 20 miler, we would, it'd be one day and then the next day do the same thing. I think that really prepared us for long distance stuff.
And regular walk breaks, right, before you need them.
Yeah.
That's one thing we didn't notice until we ran the Skydive Ultra was we saw people would like walk like maybe like 5 minutes and then run like 20, like to do like a ratio, and like we never knew anything about that.
Right off the rip too. Like, you start and you run a half a mile and then you're like, okay, it's time to walk. A half a mile in, right? I mean, but the goal is you never empty the tank. The tank stays 3/4 full the entire way through the race.
Yeah. I hear you.
The ideal.
Well, anyhow, I think we don't want to waste any more of your time. I know you gotta get back to work.
When are you gonna come back to a skydive? Forget the running for a minute. When do we get you boys back in the air? More skydiving.
It's funny because I never thought I would have skydived until we signed up for your race.
I had done it once before, but I really didn't think like I would go back and do it. But it definitely was like a really cool experience. Yeah. The second time I'd be going back down. And Clewiston, I think, is like the closest skydive place to us.
Yeah. There's one up in Sebastian, but
I've been back to where I did my first one. Yeah.
Beautiful with the water right there. It's awesome.
Seeing
But
Cape Canaveral.
skydiving, when you're not strapped to somebody else and you're controlling yourself, man, it's amazing. It's awesome.
How long does it get, like, does it take to get your license? I saw there was like different levels to it, or A,
So
B.
you could show up and you could jump with your own parachute tomorrow. You could do that tomorrow. You would be with an instructor or two instructors that jump out of the plane holding on to you. And then it's a series of, I want to say, between 7 and 10 jumps with an instructor, either holding on to you or near you as you go through that progression. And after that 7 to 10 jumps, you're essentially signed off to continue learning by yourself. And at that point, it's a $25 jump ticket. That's all you're paying to go skydive after 7 to 10 jumps. And you're already solo and you're learning by yourself. So in theory, you could do that in a weekend.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, after your 25th jump, they give you a license and you could show up anywhere and nobody asks you any questions. You can kill yourself wherever you want.
That's up to you at this point.
Yeah.
So where you're after that 25th jump, but usually before those 25 jumps, you would have to be with someone, not tandem, but there would be an.
It's like the first 7 jumps is where the progression is. The first jump, 2 guys jump out with you. You go through a 6-hour class. Then at the end of that 6-hour class, 2 people go in the plane with you and they hold either side of your harness and they really don't let go of you. So you're stable falling all the way down. The next jump, 2 people jump out with you and maybe they let go for a split second. They stay real close. The next jump, they let go even longer. And then the 4th jump, 1 person doesn't go with you anymore. Now you're just with 1 person. And they're not really holding on to you at that point because you know how to maintain your body in free fall. And then by like jump 4 or 5, now you're just having fun with an instructor in the sky at that point.
Just doing the thing, you know most of what to do, and he's there to make sure nothing goes wrong.
Yeah. And if you're interested, go get in one of those wind tunnels. It's exactly the same without the view.
I heard that's like the best way to be able to figure out how to control your body in the air. Because there's minimal risk, and and you could figure out without having to jump out of a plane.
100%. It's like, so if you want to go golf and you go to a golf course, right? You're driving and then you get in the golf cart and you go to the next hole and there's 15-minute gap between driving again. If you want to get really good at golf, you go and I don't golf at all. You go to the driving range and you just drive repeatedly, right? Over and over and over and over again. The wind tunnel in skydiving, you have 40 seconds to figure shit out under extreme pressure. And then you wait for the next plane, which could be 45 minutes if you're packing your parachute. Then you have another 45 seconds to figure it out under extreme duress.
Wow.
In the wind tunnel, there's an instructor who stands right in front of you for 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 3 minutes of nonstop free fall.
Is that what you did to kind of like get your grasp on the sport?
We started this conversation with me telling you I'm not that smart. That's
okay.
what I've learned is what I'm trying to pass off to the youngsters like you guys at this point is don't make the same mistakes I did.
We appreciate it.
Bring a condom to your races.
I'm going to try that one next time.
Yes. Only if you need it. I mean, listen, you got to stay protected, right?
Right. Well, yeah, no, for sure. I think we'll probably end up going skydiving again. I don't know if anytime soon because I'm a little broke right now, but yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely a thing that I would like to try again.
Yeah,
good idea to avoid it, man. Running is cheap, skydiving is expensive.
Yeah.
But that's fun. Florida's great. You guys are really lucky to be in Florida, and particularly in West Palm Beach. There's a huge ultra running community. Yeah, it's really big. The Florida Ultra Running Group is great. It's really easy to link up with runners all over the place. And there are some badasses in that West Palm Beach area.
We just downloaded the app Strava. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Never used it, but I'm familiar with it.
And I would see there's these clubs on there and stuff that you can they put you in ranking with other runners. Yeah. And in the area alone, there's a ridiculous amount of people that are running crazy amount of miles every day.
Yeah.
I can't do that stuff, man. I was never the Garmin, Strava, mileage, like numbers. I just like to go run for a few hours. It's mostly time, not like mileage or distance for me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. And don't share it on Facebook, for God's sake. Don't take a picture of your watch and share it every day and a half. Nobody wants to see that shit. Trust me.
Yeah.
All of your friends that don't want to run that are liking it, they really don't like it. They're like, okay, that's cool. Good job. 26 miles. Can I go back to whatever terrible social media stuff we're getting hammered with now.
Oh yeah, no, it's especially nowadays, it's ridiculous. But
Crazy.
that's another conversation.
Another whole podcast, and I don't want any part of that, man. I'm just gonna stick my head back in the sand and try to avoid where we're at right now.
Well, thank you very much, Eric.
Of course.
We appreciate it a lot, man. And
it was fun talking to you guys.
It was fun for us, man. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Stay safe out there, this whole virus and all that.
I'll try, man. I'll try. It's good talking to you guys. Nick, Giovanni.
All right.
See you, boys.
Have a good one, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.